life hasn't come up and been like challenge accepted quite yet. And there are specific laws that you can use when you're in that frame of mind that just really give you a head start in bringing what you want into your reality. Hello, prosperity seeker, and welcome to another episode of The Prosperity Approach. I'm your host, Allyson Chavez, and we are in the midst of a series of universal laws and the different laws that govern prosperity and creation, how to actually use them so they make a difference in your life, a difference for good to help you lay down any sort of struggle that you might be experiencing. And also using them to your advantage so that you are managing to manifest and create something more important or a little bit more life-changing than close parking spaces and green lights all the time. And so last time we talked about 4 different laws to use when you're first getting going on your journey and you're wanting to see how the universe is structured, how the laws work in accordance to you. And today I want to continue that conversation with 4 other laws to use to get you going. Getting going is when you're feeling lit up, the dream is new, it's fresh, you haven't gotten into the mundane or the humdrum or, all of the ordinary. Life hasn't come up and been like challenge accepted quite yet. And there are specific laws that you can use when you're in that frame of mind that just really give you a head start in bringing what you want into your reality. So let's continue on with some more laws that you can use. The first one I want to talk about is the law of cause and effect. It's also known as the law of the harvest. This is a really cool law. And what this law says is every cause has a definite effect, and every effect has a definite cause. Effects are not random. Okay, now I don't know about you, but when I first read that, I was like, ¿Cómo se what? What does that really mean? And as I pondered and I studied it, I decided to take out the word effects and replace it with the word results, because that actually landed a whole lot better for me. So when we make that little substitution, the law then says, every cause has a definite result, and every result has a definite cause. Results don't happen randomly. Okay, so now I'm not at the mercy of, whatever life just wants to whimsically throw my way. If I understand that a result has a definite cause and a cause has a definite result, I'm actually a whole lot more in control than I thought I was in this whole creation process. So first, raise the roof. We get to celebrate that victory right there. Okay, but then I thought, all right, well, what's the cause? All right, we got a definite result, but what is the cause? Is the cause the circumstance? Is the cause the situation or the condition? No, actually, those are all results. Those are all effects. The cause is you. That's how powerful you are. It's the way you're using your thoughts, the way you're using your emotions, the way you're using your words, your actions, the beliefs that you're running. It's you. It's how you're using your conscious mind and also the programs that are running in your subconscious. That is so huge, because if you're the cause, all you need to do is change you. And yeah, I get it. Easier said than done. Words don't mean anything unless they're backed up by the appropriate vibration. But still, to me, it was really refreshing to know how much power I actually had to realize that I was the cause. And by making small changes at first and tiny tweaks at first, it creates a very, very different result. Now, I want to compare this because a lot of people call it the law of the harvest as well. So let's use some farm analogy, all right, or some food analogy. Gosh, because I love food so much. So if you plant a carrot seed, you will always and forever get a carrot. You will never, ever, ever get a daisy if you plant a carrot seed. Now, the size of the carrot, the vibrancy of the carrot, the nutritional value of the carrot is all influenced by the quality of the soil that you're planting this seed in. But you can count on it 100% of the time that if you plant a carrot seed, you're going to get a carrot as the result. Okay, so that's really fun to know. That's how nature works. And we can use nature as our example all the time because we're actually not above nature. We need to obey the laws of nature as well, including the laws of prosperity and creation, these universal laws. But how does that translate into your own life? And that's what I'm all about. Like, I really don't care about the theory of prosperity. I want to know the practical use of that theory so that I can actually change my life in dramatic ways, but love the journey as I'm experiencing these dramatic changes and redesigning my reality. When I thought about, okay, how does the law of the harvest or the law of cause and effect actually show up in my life? When I was really, really honest with myself, I thought, okay, well, what kind of seeds am I planting? What are the thought seeds that I'm putting in my own garden of conscious and subconscious mind? And I realized at the beginning, I just planted seeds of doubt all the time. And I'm talking about like the beginning of my own career and creating and building up and scaling my own company. I would have these projects that I would work on, right? And I would plant seeds of doubt all along the way. And then I would water the seeds of doubt all the time through second guessing and being afraid to make a mistake. And what if this doesn't actually work? And what's the cost of me doing this? And oh no, if it fails, then it means this. And so I kept watering that seed of doubt. Well, it's no wonder why I had such a fantastic crash, because I was planting so many weeds along with my vision that it was choking out my vision. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I really don't have to give a whole lot of attention to my doubts. Like, they'll just freaking run rampant all over my brain if I allow them to and if I give them that stage time. I don't have to like coax my doubts and my fears out of some dark corner. Usually they're just standing right next to my vision and being like, Donkey on Shrek. Pick me, oh, pick me. I want to go on this journey with you. Pick me. Like, and I mean, they're actually not even asking permission to be picked and go on the journey with you. They're just like, I'm going unless you tell them no. And so the way it showed up as I was creating my clientele, as I was creating content, it was always, oh my gosh, is this content good enough? Am I saying the right words? Is it going to resonate with people? And what if I say the wrong thing? And every time I signed a client, I thought it was a fluke. Every time. And not just the first couple of times. I had signed dozens of clients. And every single time, I thought it was a fluke. Like, that's how it showed up for me. And so I was the cause of the result that I had with my business tanking and things being so difficult for me as I went, because I kept planting seeds that didn't actually help me. They didn't nourish my vision. They were choking out my vision. So I definitely used this law of the harvest against myself. But, looking back, I have so much compassion for that version of me, because if I didn't have a real world example that I went through myself, then I couldn't share it with you and some of the struggle and some of the suffering for you, or cut that down considerably based on my own experience. Like, learn your lessons, but learn your lessons from other people's experiences, if at all possible, because it's going to save you a whole lot of pain and frustration as you go. So let's talk about another law. This law is called the law of attention. It's also known as the law of focus. So a lot of these laws, in order to remember them, they have these really catchy little phrases or little rhymes. And this one says, energy flows where attention goes. What you focus on expands. It gets bigger. So it's really important to understand that we're all energy. Everything is energy. Energy can be measured. You can track it. You can see it with powerful enough equipment. So we're all energy, we're all vibrating, and we can actually measure the frequency of where we're vibrating. So this is a really fabulous law to understand. So what is attention in this case? Attention is the focus of our thoughts, our words, and our actions. What are you concentrating on? So if you want to stop flowing energy to something that you don't want, to do that successfully, you have to start flowing energy and attention to the things that you do want. And here's where we go off the rails all the time so fast. We think that saying, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, is changing the flow of our energy and changing our focus. It's not, because here's a little secret. Your subconscious and the universe does not recognize words of negation. The language of energy is emotion. And so if we're in this, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, what are you thinking about? And what are you flowing your energy and your emotion to? You're thinking about it happening. So negating it by saying, I don't want this, or this shouldn't happen, or this is what I'm wanting to avoid, like that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I speak from firsthand experience on that. Please learn from me. Again, you're going to save yourself so much hassle if you'll just learn from me and take my word for it. So let me start with one that doesn't really make a whole big difference, but you can see the truth in this about how this law works in your everyday life. So I remember a while ago, I was leaving and I needed to go to the school. I needed to go to school. I had to drop something off for one of my kids. So that was my intention. I'm pulling out of the driveway. My plan is to go to the school. Well, I start thinking about work and what I'm going to do there, what was waiting for me that day. And work is in the opposite direction of school. Guess what direction I started heading? I started heading into work. Even though my whole intention when I left, I was leaving early so that I could stop at the school. Then I could go to work like I planned the whole day in my mind. But at that moment, my energy, my attention, my focus was all on work. And I had already kind of placed my body there at work. I could see myself in my mind, what I was going to be working on, the different projects that were going on. And boom, that's the direction, literally, that my thoughts took me. So I was like, holy cow, the law works. The law of attention works on every single level. Now, that doesn't make a huge difference. All I had to do was turn the car around and head back to school and focus on the school. I had to shift my attention to what I wanted. I wanted to go to the school. Now, when we were in some financial freefall going on a few years ago, you can bet that my attention was on the freefall. That's what my focus was on. And I completely negated this law because every time I thought about it, there was massive anxiety. There was a ton of dread. I kept playing out worst case scenarios in my mind. Every time I prayed, it was this begging, pleading, please stop this. We're going off the cliff. Please back us up from this cliff. I was focused on the cliff all the time, and I was putting so much momentum in that flow of energy through my emotion and through what I was picturing. The logical conclusion, the only result that could have come from that was a bankruptcy, was a rock bottom. And if I had had the wherewithal at the moment to be like, oh, I'm creating something here that I don't actually want, and then just really turned my canoe around in that river and that river of flow, right? That focused on what it is I do want and how I do want to feel. It would have had a very different ending. It would have had to have had a very different ending. But that's how powerful I am in creating what I don't want. And understanding how the laws work. They work 100% of the time for 100% of people. And it doesn't have anything to do with your morality, has nothing to do with your religion. It has nothing to do with whether you're a, quote, good person or not. You obey the law, you get the reward that's attached to obeying the law. You disobey the law, you get the penalty that's attached with disobeying the law. The law is completely impersonal. And the law is just. 100% of the time. And when we see how the laws actually work in our lives, it's so refreshing. It's so liberating. And then you can let go of feeling like a victim to your circumstances. You let go of blaming yourself or blaming others. You realize, dang, I was really, really powerful. I pulled in all the players that was necessary for this drama. I pulled in all of the circumstances, all of the events, and here we go. That's how powerful you are. Let's talk about the law of non-resistance. The law of non-resistance says what you resist persists. See how cute they are to help you remember what the law is, all the fun rhymes that are going on. So don't fight the obstacles. Don't resist the situation that you're in, because then that situation will remain. Those obstacles will remain. And if you don't believe me, then just go listen to the law of attention that we just finished talking about. It's because of that. See how these laws dovetail into each other so beautifully. It's why you can pick up one law and the other laws are affected by it. So don't work against the things that you don't want. Work toward the things that you do want. All right. So what does that mean? How does that look in our life? Don't give your time, your energy, your attention to people or things that oppose what you want. Because when you do that, it creates barriers. So let's turn to nature once again. Let's look at water. And we're going to look at a little stream of water high up in the mountain. Now, water wants to seek its own level. So it's trying to get to the ocean. It's trying to get to the bigger body of water. So if it's starting high up in the mountain, there's not this clearly paved path for the water to flow down. It's got twigs in its way. It's got branches. It's got leaves. It's got flowers. It's got other trees. It's got logs and rocks and boulders in its way. Now, does the water, when it comes up against a tree or a log, marshal all of its forces to try to push the log out of its path? No. It goes around it. It goes around the boulder, or it goes over it, or it goes under it. It just winds its way around. It just moves around the object that's in its path. And so it's not this straight, it's not this straight line between the top of the mountain and the stream and the river it's trying to get to. It winds around, it goes here, it goes there, it doubles back sometimes, but eventually it gets down to the river where it's going. And water is the most non-resistant element on the planet. It takes the shape of whatever container it's in. It takes the shape of a round glass, of a square glass, of a bathtub, of a Mickey Mouse shaped ice cube. It takes the shape of any container that it's in. It's non-resistant. And that's what we get to do. We get to be non-resistant like water. Again, how does this play out in everyday life, and why does this matter to you? In real life, the boulders that we place in our path take the form of fighting, of arguing, of being resentful, of being judgmental, of being in doubt and in fear and feeling like somebody's or something is blocking us and we have to move it out of our way before we can continue down our path. Arguing keeps the obstacle in your path because that's what you're focused on. See the law of attention / the law of focus once again. So what do you do with this? Don't make a big deal out of the obstacles. Keep your eye on the prize and persevere. So when I decided, once we hit that bottom and I was like, I've had enough of feeling this way. So the whole agenda is one thing, feel good. All right. And I've created collectors calling, agencies calling. I've collected lots of debt that we can't pay. That's what I've created with my thoughts and with my emotions and with my actions. So, okay. So this is what I created. But rather than go into defensive mode with them and be like, well, you charged too much interest and this happened and somebody completely lied to me, even though that was true. And other people defaulted on me, which was also true. Instead of all of that arguing and all of that defensive positioning that I could have taken, I was just like, well, you know what? I'm going to answer their call. I didn't avoid them. I answered their call and I took the emotion out. I took my own self-judgment or judging others out of it as well. And I was just very forthcoming with them. Here's where we're at. I can't pay the bill. I don't know when it's going to be paid. And here's what I'm faced with. I have 4 children and I can either put food on the table or I can pay a credit card and I'm going to take care of my family. And it wasn't like finger pointing in my face. It wasn't finger pointing in their face. It was a beautiful conversation because now my attention was focused on how I wanted to feel. And I just wanted to feel good from moment to moment, or just to feel a little bit better even. I mean, there was times when I couldn't even hit good. I wanted to feel relief. I wanted to feel just a little bit better. So I took my attention off the obstacles and off the boulders and off all of the different players. I was like, all right, here's what it is. We're just going to work with what is. And that was actually me going around the boulder and me going over the log and me just making my way down to, well, in my case, it was kind of up to, but if I'm going to be the stream and I want to seek my own level, it was just me flowing down to that beautiful river that I actually wanted to connect to, which is flow and creativity and abundance and prosperity and wealth and all of those things. What represents prosperity to me? So again, just stop resisting, stop fighting what's so, because the more you fight the what's so, the more you're going to be in the what's so. Just here's what it is. Let's work with it. Let's see what we can do. And keep your eye on the prize and just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward, one step at a time, one crawl at a time, if that's what's required. All right, let's talk about the next law is the law of flow. Now, these 2 laws, I'm going to talk about the law of flow and the vacuum law of prosperity, actually are kind of, they go together. They click together like Legos really beautifully. So the law of flow says that things are always moving and changing. They're flowing into and out of your life. So if you want new things to flow into your life, you have to let go of old things. Now, this is kind of the spiritual side of this law or the mental side of this law. There's also the physical side. We'll talk about that in just a second with the vacuum law of prosperity. But more with flow, I want to focus on emotions. I want to focus on memories and what you're holding on to. If you're hoarding money, if you are holding on to memories that no longer serve you, if you're holding on to judgments or trauma or guilt or any of those lower vibrating things, there literally is not any room for things to flow to you, for those higher things to flow to you, like relief and connection and healing and wholeness and prosperity and wealth and all of those things, the relationships that you want. There isn't any room for it. We end up log jamming it when we're holding on to those feelings that just don't help us any longer. So we have to let them flow. We have to be willing to let go of those hurts of the past so that we can then experience the flow of those higher feelings and those higher thoughts. Now, most people will replace an old emotion with the same emotion. It's why we forgive people, the same person of the same transgression over and over and over again, because we let go of the hurt and the issue in the moment. Then we feel good, but then our mind goes back to that feeling and we pull it back to us. So we just keep replacing emotions with the same emotions. I did this grieving the death of my mother. I held onto grief for years and years. I was 11 when my mom died. So my mom's been gone for 30 plus years. Now, one of the things that was sort of a fallout surrounding her death was we really weren't allowed to express the grief that we were feeling. We could express anger, but it really wasn't a safe place to express vulnerability or tears or anything like that. Now, was my dad the villain in all of this? Were my siblings horrific in all of this? No, I'm not going to make anybody the bad guy. This is just the environment that we were in. It wasn't safe for me to express grief in a healthy way. And so I kept that inside. So now fast forward 20, 30 years, I'm in my mid 30s and my body, which I didn't realize was filled with grief. And every time I would try to let go of the grief, I would let go of it for a time and then I'd bring it back. And the way I knew it was that any time that I would deeply cry, it felt like my heart was breaking all over again. I was reliving my mom's death over and over and over again. I didn't trust feelings of peace, feelings of healing in my heart for years and years. And it wasn't until I allowed the grief to release because it filled my entire body. And then I could bring in a little bit of peace and a little bit of resolution and a little bit of healing that I realized I kept trading the emotion for the same emotion over and over and over again. When I felt that peace, I could still grieve, and I still did grieve. But the difference was I didn't feel my heart breaking. I didn't feel like it was cracking into pieces all over again every time I thought about my mom and grieved her. So that's kind of a dramatic example of the law of flow, but hopefully it hits home with you that it's really important that we let those emotions flow out of us so that we can then experience emotions of peace and restitution and healing and optimism and hope and joy and all of those emotions. All right, last law, the vacuum law of prosperity. So this is kind of the physical counterpart to the universal law of flow. The vacuum law of prosperity says that nature abhors a vacuum. And now a vacuum is empty space or a void. So when empty space is created, nature moves in to fill it, and it likes to fill it fast because it doesn't like void. So if you're ever wanting something, clean out your junk drawer, clean out your closet, clean out your drawers. It's really interesting what happens if you pay attention to it. Don't you feel so good when something is clean? When the clutter is gone, there is an energetic release you feel. Like you take a deep breath and you're like, oh, that feels so good. You feel so clean. Marianne Williamson said that a cluttered desk is the sign of a distressed mind. And isn't that fascinating? And I find that to be true as well. So if you're wanting more material things to come into your experience, you have to let go of some of those older things, material things that no longer serve you. They don't bring you joy. They're not even used at all. So they either need to be thrown away because they've used their life. They've reached the measure of their creation. They need to be thrown away. Or if somebody else can use them, they need to be donated so that they can bless somebody else's life. And then you can make room for more and for better that matches where your vibration is now. It's why people do spring cleaning every year. It's why we have a day of the week generally where we're cleaning stuff and scrubbing stuff out, because it puts us into a higher vibration and it literally creates space for those things that we want to actually click in. Such powerful, powerful laws. I hope these have been helpful so far. Again, pick one that you enjoy and just play with it, experiment with it, be in awareness of it. Just the one that kind of pops to you, play around with it. Most people like to play with the vacuum law of prosperity first because it expresses itself in really physical ways and you can see this law in action really quickly, more so than probably the other ones. So if you feel drawn to that one, by all means, go play with the vacuum law of prosperity. Now, what happens when nothing is working? What happens when things have fallen apart? What happens when you're in the middle and you feel stuck? Are there laws we can use when nothing's working? The answer to that is yes. There are several laws you can use when nothing is working. So we're going to talk about that in the next several episodes of the Prosperity Approach. So make sure that you tune into that, because what I can promise you is there will come a time in your creative process where nothing feels like it's working and nothing's working out, but it really is. Using the universal laws correctly is a beautiful, practical, fast track way to drop the struggle on your journey to success. And in fact, I am doing a free 2-hour masterclass called Success Without Struggle, Inner Game Strategies to Next Level Success. And I would love for you to join me. We're going to do that in just a couple of weeks. So totally free masterclass for you. You can register at prosperityapproach.com/masterclass. If you're looking at the notes, there's a link in the notes section here of this podcast. But let's talk about other ways that we can drop the struggle as we move on our journey to success. So please join me for that, prosperityapproach.com/masterclass. And we'll see you next time when we talk about laws to use when nothing is working. And until then, remember, prosperity becomes you.